So picture this. We are coming right up on a massive, massive milestone, the 70th anniversary of the legendary Florida Citrus Tower. That's hitting this week, actually, on June 14th, 2026. But instead of just staring up at this giant monument, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to look down. We're looking around and diving right into the real, vibrant community that was thriving right there in its shadow. We're talking about the everyday folks, the local legends, and the micro-histories of the families who literally laid the foundation of South Lake County. And we're zooming in on one absolutely pivotal year, 1956.
Now, to really get a feel for this era, you kind of have to wipe your mental slate clean. Close your eyes for just a second and imagine a totally different landscape. Way before the brutal freezes of the 1980s wiped out so much of the agriculture, South Lake County was just an endless sea of vibrant green and bright orange. Seriously, citrus wasn't just a crop. Citrus was the undisputed king here. It ran the whole show. And the smell? Locals from that time will tell you that during blossoming season, the air literally smelled like perfume. It was just a total agricultural paradise.
And smack in the middle of all that perfumed air, this absolute behemoth of a structure goes up. The newly constructed 1956 Citrus Tower in Claremont. It was this monumental hub built for one main reason: tourists. People were flocking from all over just to see the sheer, jaw-dropping scale of the Florida citrus industry. Standing way up high over those perfectly aligned rolling hills of orange trees, it was a beacon. It completely defined the skyline. But as we're going to see today, a towering monument is really only as strong as the people working the ground beneath it. Now here is where it gets incredibly cool. What you're seeing here is a gorgeous watercolor of the Citrus Tower by artist David Campos. But David isn't just some random observer painting a landmark. Oh no, he's got a direct lifeline to the exact history we're talking about. See, David is the grandson of Reverend Quinn A. Cooper, and Reverend Cooper was a man who was actively shaping this community right at the base of this tower in the exact same year it opened, 1956. It's just one of those perfect, full-circle moments where art and family heritage collide. So, 1956 is really our central hub today, because while that grand tower was opening its doors to the sky, the neighboring towns were hitting their own massive milestones on the ground. We've got Reverend Cooper finishing up a huge term at his church, a guy named Robert Campbell launching a very unique bait farm, the arrival of the Basinger family, and we'll cap it all off with a moment of literal holiday magic in December. Let's jump in. Let's start right there with David Campos's grandfather. This is Reverend Quinn A. Cooper, alongside his wife, Beatrice. In 1956, he was wrapping up a wildly productive, nearly 3-year first term as the pastor of the First Baptist Church of Groveland. And let me tell you, this guy wasn't just preaching on Sundays, he was a literal builder for his congregation. Just look at the physical legacy he cemented during that single milestone year. Under his leadership, they didn't just build a brand new educational building. They brought the absolute luxury of modern air conditioning to the sanctuary, which, if you know Florida summers, is a huge deal. They remodeled the whole auditorium and put in a property-wide irrigation system. He laid a foundation so solid that when he came back for a second term a couple of years later, he was able to spearhead buying up the surrounding land for an entirely new sanctuary. He was always looking 10 steps ahead. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. 35 cents. That is exactly what you needed in your pocket in 1956 if you wanted to buy about 70 fishing worms just north of downtown Groveland. Seriously, just 35 cents. This was the grand opening of Campbell's Bait Farm, launched by a local guy named Robert Campbell out on Highway 19. And the way he ran this little enterprise, it is just perfectly indicative of the times.
Picture this setup, because it is just charming. Robert didn't bother with a flashy neon sign or a storefront. He set up a self-service box right under a big oak tree in his driveway. He took an old weathered citrus crate, flipped it on its side, slapped some legs on it to keep the rain off, and loaded it up with cups of worms. And for payment, a simple glass mason jar. You'd pull up, grab your worms, drop your 35 cents in the jar, and honestly, if you needed change, you just reached in and made it yourself. The whole shebang operated entirely on the honor system. I mean, what an incredible testament to small-town trust, right?
Then, right as the fall weather was creeping in, October 1st, 1956 to be exact, our next key figures pull into Groveland: Bob and Marianne Basinger. They moved to town with their 3 kids on a really personal mission. They needed to help care for Marianne's father, Dr. John Turner, and to help work the family citrus groves. So they moved into this family cottage, and incredibly, no joke, the Basinger family still lives in that exact same house today. It didn't take long for the Basingers to completely weave themselves into the local fabric. Bob and Marianne were this unstoppable team. Bob started out bagging groceries at the local A&P, which eventually landed him the job of the town's beloved city mail carrier. And he did it the old-fashioned way. He'd park his station wagon at the end of the street and just walk door to door. He was so incredibly well-liked that neighbors were constantly waving him down and inviting him inside for a glass of sweet iced tea to beat the heat. And Marion, her dedication to the local women's club, which actually ran the city library, was so massive that the town officially renamed it the Marion Basinger Library in her honor.
But listen, their energy didn't stop at mail delivery and library books. They cared deeply about the local teenagers, too. Bob and Marion were the folks running the super vibrant Teenway dances over at the Lake David Community Building. And the absolute heartbeat of those Friday nights? An original 1950s Rockola Teenway jukebox, exactly like this one. Can you just imagine the sheer joy and the rock and roll memories echoing out of those speakers back then?
So as we roll toward the end of our 1956 timeline, we hit this beautiful climax of community spirit. It is Christmas Eve 1956. We're down at the Edge Mercantile stores. Now you got to remember, in the 1950s, a brand new bicycle was quite literally the ultimate dream for a kid. Well, the local Mercantile store decided they weren't just going to sell them, they were going to give away 5 of them for free.
We actually have the original newspaper clipping from that exact day, and it really grounds all this history in real, tangible lives. 5 kids had their entire year made on that Christmas Eve. Orville Willis, Carl Johns, Barbara Silva, Tommy Paget, and Ori Mitchell. 5 shiny new bikes handed out right before Christmas. It's just a perfect, beautiful snapshot of a community taking care of its own and spreading some serious magic.
And that brings us to a really fascinating question to wrap up our explainer today. You know, monuments like the Citrus Tower, which, again, will be celebrating its massive 70th anniversary in 2026, they do define a skyline. They draw the eye upward. They pull the tourists in. But when you look at Reverend Cooper's building projects, or Mr. Campbell's honor system mason jar, or the Basingers pouring their hearts into the town, or a Mercantile store giving away bikes on Christmas Eve, you realize something. It's the daily actions of everyday people that actually define a community's legacy. Yes, the physical tower is still standing tall, but a town's real, unbreakable foundation is built by its people. So I'm going to leave you with this to chew on. What daily actions are you taking right now to build the legacy of your own community? Thanks so much for hanging out with me on this journey through 1956, and as always, keep exploring.